Welcome to Meet the Ocean, a nonprofit podcast that blends storytelling and audio theater to improve how marine science is communicated to the public. That's you, by the way. I'm your host, Paul North, and today we pay homage to our beginnings, returning to the original guest from our very first episode, the master naturalist, artist, and word warper himself, Ian Bullock. British as he may be, today Ian's story takes us to Alaska and describes the age-old battle between the majestic bald eagle and the legendary witticisms of Raven. But before we dive in, some updates on what our nonprofit has been up to. We released a Halloween spooktacular featuring conservation author Carl Safina that explores a few unsightly creatures from the deep. We also released a vote episode encouraging people to use their voices to speak for the planet, aiding in the largest voter turnout in recent American history. Other recent episode topics include submarines, diving volcanoes in Antarctica, and killer whales. Super boring stuff, I promise. Yeah. Lastly, we were voted Best Nature Podcast by the city of Portland, Oregon. We are building the next generation of informed ocean advocates, but in order to continue doing so, we need your support. We are a listener-supported, nonprofit podcast, so every donation helps us to continue building our library of ocean content for the international public. You can always find more podcasts, underwater creatures, and ways to donate to our nonprofit on our website, meettheocean.org. And now, on to our show.
I remember one time on a fabulous trip to Alaska on one of Lindblad's little ships, the Sea Lion. And I was up on deck. It was first thing in the morning. It was absolutely beautiful. It was one of those still Alaskan mornings when everything was crystal clear and the sun was bright, the shadows were sharp, and we were coming up some narrow creeks. It was low tide, and I was just on the bow looking at the shoreline as we went past. And you could see a big slope up where there was all that seaweed, and then it leveled out at the top of the bank. And just up amongst the stones and the seaweed, I suddenly spotted a bald eagle. Now, of course, he's sitting on a nice pyramidal rock, and he's looking down into the creek, just as we were, because, of course, salmon are moving up that creek. And that eagle knows sooner or later a salmon's going to turn up, and that could be breakfast. And he looked magnificent. The early rays of the sun struck him, that pure white head, that wonderful dark blackish brown chestnut body, and those big talons perched on this weedy rock, and he really looked like the king of all he surveyed. Of course, it's a magnificent symbol, is it not? For a nation. But at that point, a raven flew down and landed, I suppose, about 5 meters behind the eagle. And the eagle obviously noticed that over his shoulder, but he didn't react, because of course he's on top of the rock, he's in a pole position there. But he's thinking, what is this raven up to? Now, as I watched, the raven took 3 long strides closer to the bald eagle, right behind that eagle, and it just stopped, and it stared at the back of the eagle's head. Now that eagle started to look extremely uncomfortable. Raven is quite a big bird. It's a smart bird. I think we all agree it's the most intelligent bird. It's the biggest of the crow family. And boy, they live a long time. They learn a lot, and they remember everything they learned. So this raven now is just staring at the back of the eagle's head. And I tell you, that eagle's starting to look really shifty now. It's kind of shuffling its feathers, and it does not feel comfortable. It can no longer concentrate on this clear water and the possibility of salmon. And that raven takes one more step until it's almost within pecking distance of the tail of that magnificent eagle. Now the eagle can't bear it any longer. It's still got its back to this raven, and it feels vulnerable, and it's trying to look over both shoulders. It doesn't trust that raven. They're kind of rivals in a way. But is not the eagle, the bald eagle, the king of birds? Why has he got to worry about a raven? But do you know what? That raven is playing a psychological game with that bald eagle. It's right behind it. It's staring up at the back of that eagle. And finally, the eagle can't bear it any longer. And it twists left, it twists right, and then just it's had enough, it takes off from that rock. And do you know what the raven did then? It took 2 more paces, and it climbed up onto that rock and stood there in the early morning sunshine, surveying the creek and the chance of a salmon coming past. And I tell you, in the Pacific Northwest there's a tribe called the Tlingit Indians, and they're divided up into different clans, and one of those clans is the Eagle clan, and one of those clans is the Raven clan. And I tell you now which clan I want to belong to, and that's the Raven clan.
Meet the Ocean is produced by Paul North and Andrew Gettings, with sound design by Kelsey Anderson. We are a listener-supported nonprofit. You can find more podcasts, underwater creatures, and ways to donate to our educational outreach on our website, meettheocean.org. Subscribe to our podcast to never miss an episode, support us on Patreon, and please rate and review Meet the Ocean on Apple Podcasts or on whatever platform you choose to listen. Until next time, may the saltwater be with you.